could see a meeting between the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S. After yesterday's Oval Office meeting, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said he's ready to sit down with Putin, but there is no date set just yet. Last night on The Takeout with Major Garrett, former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, who served in the first Trump administration, gave his analysis of Putin's position in these talks.
This message of U.S. and Europe being together, that's got to be a little bit disquieting to Vladimir Putin, who, by the way, Major, is in a position of profound weakness. He doesn't want a ceasefire because he's trying to make even modest territorial gains on the front in Ukraine to appear as if he's strong.
And we have team coverage for you this morning. Holly Williams is on the ground in Kyiv, where she's been talking with Ukrainians. But let's begin with Nancy Cordes at the White House. Nancy, good morning. So we're learning more about President Trump's call with Putin after yesterday's meeting with President Zelenskyy. What are you hearing?
Good morning, Michael. Well, the Russians say that it lasted for 40 minutes, and President Trump says that they discussed making arrangements for a meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin. That would be a first. They have not met face-to-face since this war broke out 3.5 years ago when Russia invaded Ukraine. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said yesterday that that meeting could happen sometime within the next 2 weeks. That would be incredibly significant. Putin has always had a long list of demands that he said needed to be met before he'd be willing to even sit down with Zelenskyy. And interestingly, we are getting some tea leaves from the Russian Kremlin that might be some cause for concern. We'll have to wait and see. But first, a Russian spokesman confirmed that there would be high-level talks, but did not confirm that Putin would be involved. And then Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, said this morning that there would have to be what he called extensive preparations before any such meeting could take place. So is that an effort to stall? We don't know. But certainly we haven't gotten ironclad confirmation from the Russians yet that this meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy is going to take place, even though Putin told Trump himself on Friday that he was open to it.
All right, Nancy Cordes at the White House. Thank you. Well, for more on yesterday's high-level talks at the White House, I'm joined by CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams, who's tracking developments from the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Holly, good morning. How are people in Ukraine reacting to yesterday's meeting?
Good morning, Michael. Well, the bottom line is that there can be no ceasefire deal, no peace deal, unless Vladimir Putin agrees to it. After all, he started this war by invading Ukraine nearly 3.5 years ago. And many Ukrainians, many people here are deeply skeptical that Vladimir Putin really wants to end the war. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, the Russian onslaught is ongoing here and civilians are being killed. Just yesterday, Ukrainian officials say that a swarm of Russian drones hit an apartment building in the city of Kharkiv, killing at least 5 people, including a baby girl. Secondly, Russian forces currently have the upper hand on the battlefield, and they have for some time. They are taking ground from the Ukrainians slowly, but they're taking it. And Vladimir Putin has tied his political legacy to this war. So why, at this point, would Putin want to end it? And finally, even if Vladimir Putin did agree to a ceasefire or a peace deal, many Ukrainians tell us they simply do not trust him to stick to his word, because he invaded their country back in 2014, and then he broke international agreements and invaded again in 2022.
And Holly, when you talk with Ukrainians, what security guarantees are they looking for to ensure that Putin doesn't attempt to launch another invasion in the future?
Well, look, the security guarantee that Ukraine asked for many years is membership of NATO. Now, if you're a member of NATO, an attack on one state is regarded as an attack on all of them. It is a mutual defense pact. But President Trump, the Trump administration, has taken that off the table. It says that's not going to happen for Ukraine. Just in the last few days after that meeting with Vladimir Putin, there's been talk of something that would look a bit like Article 5 of NATO, that mutual defense pact. But we don't really have any details. We don't know how it would work. And the problem problem for many Ukrainians is that they know that international agreements have failed to protect their country in the past. Why would it be any different this time? I think President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in a very difficult situation. On the one hand, he can't afford to simply reject President Trump's efforts and his optimism. He can't afford to alienate him, as we saw back in February at that contentious meeting at the White House. On the other hand, if President Zelenskyy agrees to give up land permanently to Russia in return for security guarantees, many Ukrainians would potentially see that as either weak or foolish. At the very least, it would be divisive here in Ukraine.
All right, Holly Williams reporting in Kyiv. Thank you.